Welcome to Recovery His Way. I'm your host, Tom Reynolds, and we're here today with Art Bailey. Art, good to have you with us. Art is become a dear friend of mine. He's in the Atlanta area, and he's been a part of our recovery work over there that His Way started about 9 months ago, but he's been in recovery a long time. We're going to have him share about that. We've been looking at the 12 steps, and we've kind of looked at them from a biblical point of view, and then we've interviewed guys who are pursuing the 12 steps from that biblical perspective. And so today we're talking about the 12th step, and so we'll get more into that in a little bit. But Art, it's good to have you with us, and maybe you could just give us kind of a little bit of your story so we get kind of a feel for who you are and where God has brought you.
As I would at hundreds of rooms and thousands of times say, my name is Art, I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Art.
Hi, Tom. I did not plan to be one. I did not think I was going to be one, and I would not recommend it for anybody. However, it happened. I come from a line of alcoholics. My mother was an alcoholic. I don't know whether my father was an alcoholic, but who cares? I was born and raised in a little town called Lakewood, New Jersey. It's about 70 miles south of New York City. My father was a dentist, middle class family. But my father died when I was 14. When he died when I was 14, I was left pretty much unsupervised, which is not a good thing for a teenager. I started getting in trouble, and part of the trouble was drinking beer here or there, having a little glass of booze every once in a while, and all that good stuff. At 17, a friend of mine, I got out of high school, and a friend of mine suggested that we go into service. My mother was more than happy to sign the paperwork because I wasn't 18 yet to send me in. I will say this about the service. I went to the Air Force. Going into service is a great way for a teenager who's got troubles to get his life straightened out. Mm-hmm. However, in the Air Force, by the time I was 20 years old, I had met a Sergeant Bell who became a good friend of mine, but he introduced me to a wonderful elixir called Scotch. And I fell in love with that wonderful elixir. And for many years, it provided a out for me and an in for me and this, that, and the other thing. However, in the long run, it was a disaster. I went to the University of Florida for a year, failed out, went back up north and studied. My year in 1962 in Florida was a disaster, and I don't really remember a whole lot of it, but then a lot of people in the 60s don't remember a whole lot of the 60s either. So anyway, I went back up north and I studied, and I got out of college and I had a degree, but by that time I had gotten married. And so going for a master's, even though I was offered, was not in the cards. I went to work. The first job I got was a job selling dental materials, and I had the territory from New York through the Maritime Provinces of Canada. And my job was detailing with guys and taking them out to dinner and their wives and cocktailing. It fit right up my alley. And I did it quite well until the company was put out of business by a competitor, and eventually I ended up in New York City selling advertising space. Well, you've seen that program called Mad Ave. Well, I was at the tail end of that. And a lot of that was true. You know, there was always a bottle of booze in the drawer. There was always a carton of cigarettes in the drawer. There was always, let's go to 3 martini lunches. And that was my job in life for about 25 years.
Wow.
I suffered, of course, relationships because I traveled on the road a lot. I lost a family early. Then I got remarried and lost another family. It was all because of alcohol. I was rather party on the road or party wherever than be a husband or a father, actually, much to my regret now. But then in those days, I didn't really know what I was doing. Alcohol was running the show, and I was just part of it. Mm-hmm. I did have a boss one time who told me that if I got drunk and disorderly, I'm going to send you all over the country. And if you get drunk and disorderly and Dallas or San Francisco or Seattle, I will dry out and bring you home. But if you're busted on drugs, he said, you're not even coming home. I don't care. You're done. I looked him straight in the eye and said, Bob, alcohol works. I got the message right quick. Alcohol worked. And it worked for years until it didn't work. The second divorce, loss of my second family and wife and daughter really got me into a funk. The funk was relieved by a guy who 12-stepped me and brought me into AA.
Okay.
I went to my first meeting on July 17th, 1981, and I haven't looked back. Were there times when I wanted to look back? Absolutely. Were there some close calls? Absolutely. However, I stuck with it. There is a book, I guess everybody I don't know has ever read it. It's called The Road Less Traveled.
Mm-hmm.
First line is, life is difficult. Life is difficult. Life is not easy. But life with addiction is a lot worse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I found out. I found out through the auspices of AA.
Mm-hmm.
Now, during the years when I was drinking, of course, I was not really involved with any kind of religion, organized or disorganized.
Right.
I was not involved.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of left the church after my father passed when I was 14. I never looked back until I got in the program of AA. There's a saying in AA, you come to, and you come to believe. It goes that way.
Mm-hmm.
Come to believe in a power greater than ourselves can relieve us from insanity. And my life was insane. There was no question about it. I didn't realize it, of course, but that was insanity, what I was doing up until that July 17th day. I found religion, but I found religion in a weird sense, the way you guys have it. I found a small church called the Plymouth Brethren. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but they are very, very conservative group. I wanted to get back to Jesus. I wanted to get to the Methodist church. I went a couple times. They didn't have it anymore. Became United Methodist, and they walked away from really what I figured or I remembered about the Bible and about Christ. So I got tied up with the Plymouth Brethren, and they are a very conservative, Bible-believing, to the point where the women wear head covers. However, they are strictly, biblical and Christ believing. And I, was on that way and on that path with those people for years, and I really enjoyed it. That was, probably from 83 to 90, 91, 92, somewhere in there. I have met my present wife in 1991, and she has stuck with me. Funny thing about that when you're sober, people have a tendency to want to be around you.
There you go.
And that's really what happened. So my wife and I will be next month married 30 years.
Awesome. Congratulations.
It is. I give her lots of credit for putting up with me, but hey, she's a saint. What can I tell you? But she introduced me to Church of Christ. Her grandfather was an itinerant minister in the Church of Christ. Church of Christ is very biblical, and as long as it's biblical, I'll go along with it. So, as long as it teaches Christ, that Christ saves, I'll go along with it. The music, the this, the that, I don't care if we have an orchestra. I don't care any of that kind of stuff. To me, that's superfluous. But the idea is to worship God through Christ. And that's why I'm here.
Amen.
That kind of brings you up to date in a thumbnail version.
Okay.
I'm not going to go through all the nitty gritty. I don't want to tell my stories. Nobody needs to hear them anymore.
Well, let me ask you some questions. You've certainly been a key player in helping us get the His Way recovery program started in Atlanta. You've been teaching there. You've been encouraging the guys and working with them. I just wanted to kind of hear, how do you feel like the program's going? What's been your experience so far? I guess we've been going about 9 months. just what your personal experience has been with that process and working with those guys.
Okay. First of all, I don't know whether you know this, but we're baptizing our fourth guy this Sunday.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Awesome. I mean, that is wonderful. That's part of what it spurs me on, so to speak, or encourages me. Part of it is that most of these guys have been through a program once before. Some have been through His Way once before, or twice before, for a while I know. However, so they all know the steps. They've all been around that kind of a formal program. But my thought is that the steps can't get you sober. The steps can help keep you sober. They can get you through life sober or drug-free. Younger guys, it's all drugs. Me older guys, we're the booze more than drugs. So that's my thing. And if I can encourage anybody, hey, I've been doing this for almost 41 years. If I can encourage anybody, if somebody can look at me and say, I kind of like what he has, be that light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
If that old crazy person can do it, maybe I can do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
That kind of thing. So it gives me encouragement because I talk to the guys every Tuesday. I'm over there for an hour. I see them on Sunday at church. I see them Friday night. They come to my AA meeting. I see them Monday night at the Bible study. We're together a lot. I hear a lot. They talk a lot. Since I am one of them, so to speak, because I've been there, they open up. They become friends. I've sponsored a couple of the guys, and I'm still sponsoring one of them. Sorry to say one dropped out, but hey, this stuff happens.
That's part of the process.
I can't tell you how many of those over the years have dropped out.
Right. Well, I want to go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
I was just saying, the step that we're talking about, the 12th step, as you mentioned earlier, says, having had a spiritual awakening result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs. I want to kind of break that down a little bit, just for, give us some insight into what that means. So it starts with having a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. So maybe you can describe a little bit about what is a spiritual awakening? What's that about? What has it been about for you?
Came to believe that a power greater than myself could lead me to sanity and let me turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him. That's step number 3.
Right.
Hard step to do because nobody wants to turn over 100% completely. There's some days when you let the balloon go, but you're still holding the string. That's the spiritual awakening. I have found that when I was running the show, it wasn't run very well. So therefore, let God run the show. And guess what? I've been sober for almost 41 years.
Right.
God is running the show.
Right.
When I ran it, it was a disaster area. So that's a spiritual awakening to me. He is there and he will lead if I am smart enough to follow.
Right.
That's my spiritual awakening.
Right. I mean, and you mentioned an important part of it, surrendering to that process, right? And I guess we're all in different degrees of surrender, right? And like you said, sometimes we give it, sometimes we take it back. That's kind of an ongoing process. How has that process been for you? I mean, do you feel like you're more surrendered today than ever? Do you feel like you've taken more back than ever? I mean, where do you feel like you're at in that process?
No, I think sometimes my wife's dismay, I surrender a lot easier than nowadays because I don't know whether some of that comes with age. Some of that comes with, just the fact that, I've seen life. I've seen a lot of life. And as I say, life is difficult. It's a lot easier with when you're not, imbibing or using some sort of a
Right.
You asked also about carry the, these principles and all, share the principles. There is no periods in the 12th step. It's all one thing, okay? Share the message, carry the message, and have to practice these principles in all our affairs. Well, the principal steps of AA are amazing. To every day, look at your day and see how it went, and when you were wrong, promptly admitted it. conscious every day to consciously talk with God and do, remind yourself that He's in control and you aren't. These are the principles of AA and the principles of the steps as far as I'm concerned. I believe that the two guys, Bill W. and Bob Smith, were both spiritually and dedicated to write the AA big book. I don't think that came by them. I think that came from God. I really do.
Okay.
And they were only 3 years in a program when they did it. I mean, they were only 3 years sober when they did this. But if you'll read that book, sometimes you'll find God almost in every page.
Right.
That is really, really what it's all about. So you cannot get sober. And this is why I'm in love with His way. All right. Addiction is physical, mental, and spiritual. Most programs attack it from either the physical or the mental stage. They have, all these meetings and group sessions and stuff like that. His way attacks it from the spiritual side. God is the great healer. You can't get healed without the Lord. I'm sorry, but that makes all the sense in the world to me. And so His way makes a lot more sense to me than a lot of other programs that I have, been involved with.
Right. One of the things about this step that I think is interesting is, kind of the first part, having a spiritual awakening. There's kind of two facets to it. It mentions that you carry the message to others and you practice this principle in all our affairs. Is there one of those that you find is more driving or more significant to you? Is there more of a force for you? And how do those two things kind of work together to bring about this 12-step practice?
Oh boy! Well, I had my first sponsor who was a master sergeant World War II. He was 16 years sober when I met him. His name was Walter Langen. Walter, if he's still alive, he's way over 100, but that's okay.
Wow.
He got remarried and moved out of the area. I was like 7 years sober at the time. And I said, Walter, you've helped me so much. I want to buy you a present. I want to buy you guys the biggest TV, for an example, that I can find you. He said, don't do that, Art. He said, if you've got this program, and from what I see, give it away. Okay. That's, to me, the 12th step, giving it away. If anybody can see anything in me that'll help them, that's how I want to give it away.
Right.
So I've been a sponsor. I've been a DSR. I've answered phones. I still lead meetings. I speak at speaker meetings occasionally, not very often anymore, which is okay with me. I've been make coffee on Friday nights for the guys. I'm involved. I'm involved because I want these guys, everybody that I contact, to get rid of their addiction. It ain't going to happen. That's pie in the sky, but I want it to happen.
Right. Well, and you're passionate about that. I mean, you've spent 40 some years giving it away. I mean, going back and re-engaging. I've heard it said before that the best way to keep it is to give it away, right? Absolutely. And what, obviously it impacts your schedule. I mean, you may not, you can correct me here. I mean, after 40 years, you may not be, sitting on the brink of drinking today, and yet you want to get up and go to a meeting, not necessarily because you're going to try to keep that alcohol out of your mouth today, but because of something else, because you want to be there for that next guy. You want to make sure there's a word of encouragement or a connection that's being made, that kind of thing. What kind of things have motivated you? What benefit do you get, I guess? Because ultimately we do things and we're blessing others, but there's usually something that we receive in the process, something that gets us out of our chair and say, hey, I want to jump in the car and drive down to the hall today and make sure I'm there for those guys. What benefits have you find over the years that have particularly been meaningful to you?
Well, my benefit is here. I've seen some guys stay sober for a long period of time. Okay. Now, whether I had anything to do with it or not, I don't know, but I've seen it happen. Okay. And maybe it's just because we were talking about a light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe they see me as who knows? I don't know. And I don't do anything. God does it. All I can do is be there. What benefit do I get? Well, as Jim Brinkerhoff said in one of his messages, he said, if you look into heaven, then you're looking in the right direction. You know, one day I'm going to be with the Lord, and the Lord's a rewarder. And by gosh, I want a reward. You know, I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't want anything from here, from this life anymore. I've
Mm-hmm.
got everything I possibly need. You know,
Right.
and then some. God has
Right.
been very good to me, but I want to be in heaven with y'all, and I want to be there as a, you know, that the Lord can say, "Hey, good job." Okay, that's really all the reward I want anymore. I don't
Amen.
really need anything here from this life.
Right. I mean, you go to these meetings and you sponsor guys, and as you mentioned, sometimes they, you know, grasp it, they do well, sometimes they don't. How do you handle that sometimes they don't things? What do you do with that?
Well, I'm enough of a pragmatist to know that I don't have any really control over anybody. I have only basic some semblance of order over myself. So, you know, and
Right.
sometimes that's not exactly 100%.
Right.
But I always wish them well. I always ask them to stay in contact. You know, if they want to. I can't force anybody to. And I do wish them well, and I pray about them. But that's really about all I can do.
Right.
And I know that, let's face it, Tom, even his way is about a 50%, you know, long-term sobriety from your
Sure.
guys that you
Sure.
graduate. Therefore, 50% of the guys go out, meaning they're going to go back out, do whatever they're going to do, and pray to God that some of them come back or at least make it to another program.
Right.
It's sad. It's heartbreaking sometimes, but you know, life goes on.
Right.
And I'm just selfish enough to know that I'm going on. Okay.
Well, I think at times just the benefits kind of just part of being in the struggle, right? Being in the battle. I mean, just having that sense of purpose that every day I'm engaged, trying to be available to help save people's lives.
Exactly. It's the destination, of course, which is heaven, but it's the journey to get there.
Right.
And our journey is to help others. The Lord has even said that, you know, love me, but love others as yourself. Okay.
Right.
That's what it's all about.
Right. I know for me, you know, having been involved in this just a few years and not coming from your necessarily experience or background, you know, I've grown a lot spiritually from being engaged with these guys and that kind of thing. And I was thinking, you know, over the last number of years that you've been having merged this AA activity and also your Christian walk and that kind of stuff and seeing how those are working together. How do you feel like being involved in sponsoring guys, helping guys has helped you grow spiritually?
Again, that, you know, I'm not a learned Bible person, okay? I believe every word of it, but I can't tell you what verse and chapter to go to in Colossians to find whatever you're looking for.
Right.
That ain't me. But the guys, I hope, find that I am sincere when I say I love Jesus, I love the Lord, and I learned to love the Lord by reading the Bible. I will say there's a Isaiah 52:53 are what really turned me on and said the Bible is the inherent word. If you look at those words and then find out that they fit Jesus' life to T, my gosh. I just want them to. I just want anybody to know that that's where we are with this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, I'm not a mentor because I really don't know the Bible that well. I believe it, I love it, but you know, I will never. It's too late to me to memorize all that. You know. But I love it, and I like to speak about it. And when we go to Bible studies on Monday night, I'm engaged and put the guys in the Bible study.
Right.
But it's nice to see them engaged.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to see them involved. Sometimes I just sit there and go, wow, these guys know a lot more about it than I do. That's great.
Right. Right. Well, I appreciate Art. I appreciate you sharing with us today, and I appreciate your influence. You've been a great encouragement over the short time we've known each other. You've been a great encouragement to me, and I know you've been a great encouragement and inspiration to all the guys who've been to the program at His Way. And I know you've been dedicated for years to be an inspiration, encouragement to everyone that God brings in your path. I thank you for your ministry and pray that you have however many more years that God's going to give you the opportunity. I pray you'll use every moment of them to continue to inspire others until He calls you home.
That's the plan. Okay.
Well, I appreciate it, Art. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Tom, it's good to see you. I hope to see you Sunday.
All right. And thanks for joining us at Recovery His Way. And if you want to know more about our program and about this ministry, check out our website at hiswayinc.org. Thank you.